Hello, Literati people from the beach and beyond. I'm Elin Hilderbrand, and today we are talking about my September book pick, Andrea Lee's Red Island House. Oh my goodness, you guys. First of all, I'm going to start by raving about this book. This book is so amazing. I'm getting feedback. Are you getting feedback, Andrea?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
What is happening?
Either one of you have your YouTube open?
I'm having problems hearing you.
This is very strange.
Yeah, I see you perfectly.
You have the YouTube link open? No. Okay, it's better. Okay, it's all good. Better for you?
Yeah,
okay.
Fine now. Oh, what? No, it's still excellent.
Okay, what is happening? Do you have the YouTube link open, Andrea, or no?
No.
Just a weird reverb.
Let's try this. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, this is fine.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
Okay, that worked out. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm starting over. Welcome to my September Literati pick for Beach and Beyond. I have Andrea Lee joining us, the author of Red Island House. This was one of my favorite books so far this year. I read it in February. Nantucket was cold and gray, and I was completely transported to the island of Madagascar, and more specifically, the fictional island, correct, of Literati, which is where our action takes place. So just to give you a brief rundown, although most of you have already read this novel, Red Island House is about a Black American woman who marries an Italian business magnate named Senna, and Senna buys his new wife, Shay, a palatial villa. He builds it for her called the Red Island House. And the house is troubled from the very beginning. And Shay will come to understand that that is because they did not properly throw a welcome party with all of the islanders, and they did not kill the proper animal and have the feast. And she immediately has problems with her caretaker, whose name is Christos the Greek. He is a real bully and a real problem, and she needs to get rid of him. And so in our opening scene, she has conferred with her fabulous housekeeper, Bertine Legrand, and Bertine sends her into the depths of the island to meet with the neighbor, who is sort of a spiritual healer, and we go from there. It is so beautifully written, so gorgeously evoked. Every sentence is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. This novel is so evocative, and I really just have so many questions that I want to ask Andrea. So Andrea, tell us how this novel came to be.
Okay, Ellen. Well, it came to be from my own experience in Madagascar. It's not exactly, it's not a memoir, clearly, but I have spent a lot of time sojourning in Madagascar over the last 2 decades. My husband and I are really avid divers and sailors. And so, particularly my husband. And so when we met, we began to travel around, particularly around the Indian Ocean, which is not so far away from Italy. I mean, it's like going to the Caribbean from the States. Correct. And we discovered for ourselves, because you can't say you discover a country. We found out how wonderful a place the island of Madagascar is. It's this huge island. It's got, millions of people are living there, but it's enormous. And it's one of the places with the most biodiversity in the world. It's got incredible beaches, beautiful marine life, just beautiful seas. It's one of the most idyllic places I've ever been to. And I think my husband is was of the same opinion. So we began to go there. We had children. We began to spend summers in various houses, and then we decided to build a small house, not the Red Island house, but a small house on one of the out islands. And I began to watch not just the local people whom I met, but the foreigners who came there, because the foreigners who came to this gorgeous place always seemed to think that they had come to paradise. And somehow everything seemed to go wrong for them when they decided to settle down and live there. So I just kept gathering up all of these stories and anecdotes, but I thought I didn't really have a right to write about it, because I was a tourist,
Sure.
basically. I didn't think, as an African woman going to this African country, very super, it just got too much. I began to write short stories, and from there, out of these anecdotes,
Okay, you guys. So, okay, so everybody was watching. Andrea is joining us from Italy, and so we've lost her for a while. I presume that she will be back in a second. But I just want to say, a lot of you have commented online that it felt like short stories, and that's something I want to ask her about. She said she was collecting anecdotes while she was living in Madagascar, and then it did at some point feel like it was a bunch of connected short stories, with the connecting element being Shay Senna herself.
Kira, can you see me?
Yes. Okay, you're back.
It's me again. I don't know what happened.
I told everybody that you're coming to us from Italy, so it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Okay.
Yeah. So
continue.
All right, I'll keep going. Anyway, so I was collecting these stories about people whom I know. I saw these ill-fated romances between foreigners and local people. I saw all kinds of scandals. I witnessed sort of uses of magic that I couldn't actually believe actually happened and worked. And it became too much for me as a writer. I just had to start writing short stories. So I did. I published a few in the New Yorker. And then it occurred to me that all of these stories were actually connected. So I put them together, and it took a lot of time and effort to put the stories together into a novel. It was like a challenge for me. And I chose a main character who is a woman very much like me, but not me. And I tried to put them together into something bigger, into something big. And that's how it came about.
Okay. I found that very, very interesting. So at the beginning, we're really with Shay, right? So we're with Shay. She's very distraught about her house, and she can't get her footing, right? She's a Black American woman in Africa, and what an unusual sort of conundrum that is from an identity, sort of race, ethnicity perspective, to be sort of looking like the people with whom you're living among, but absolutely foreign, right? Because she's American. And I found the references to race and ethnicity and identity in this novel so fascinating. Can you speak a little bit about your own personal experience as far as being a Black American woman when you're doing your traveling? Oops, I think Andrea's gone. Okay, she'll be back, you guys. But one of the things that I noticed is that, so Shay is, at the beginning, it's very much about her and her problems. And then as you get to the middle of the book, she really becomes an observer. So she's just sort of the narrator that is, oh, there you are. Hi.
Like a Jack in the Box.
You are.
Going off and on. I have no idea why. Continue, or I'll talk too.
Well, so the question I had was, how can you speak a little bit about the identity issues as far as Shay, and also like your own personal experience, like being a Black American woman in Africa and what that was like?
Yes, and that was one of the things that kind of drove the book for me too is that
Right.
I think that as a Black American woman, I tended to romanticize Africa and see it as a kind of a monolithic place. Of course, it's a huge continent with many, many cultures and countries, but it was, for me, it's as foreign as anything else. So to go to a place like Madagascar was a kind of an education in realizing that I really, have a great deal to learn. I really have a great deal of privilege because it's one of the poorest countries in the world. So in that way, Shay was very much speaking, for me. Shay, Shay at the beginning of the book, she's very, I think she thinks that she has it all together. She goes there, she feels as if she's kind of politically correct. She's, a good person, but she really knows nothing. And the whole direction of the book is that Shay begins to learn. She starts learning in that first story. She's learning that, first of all, she thinks power. A very strong person, which is something Shay had to live there to learn. And throughout the book, she's happening in this country that is not her.
Okay, we lost Andrea again. This is proving to be challenging, but thank you guys for hanging in. So I'm going to go back to my own thread, which is that it starts out and it's very much about Shay, and then she becomes an observer, and the middle of the book is really her telling stories about the island of Literati and how, and all of this, the many vividly described stories about the people and the gossip and the scandals and the betrayals. And then at the end of the book, she comes back to dealing with her own marriage, which is falling apart at the end of the book. And that really, I felt, worked so well. There you are. Hi.
Yes.
We're going to keep going, Andrea.
I should do a little dance every time I come back on. Okay. Well, yes, I'll try to talk fast.
Okay.
Shay does learn a lot through the book. Shay, the book is kind of Shay kind of growing up and learning about herself, about acknowledging and learning a lot about this particular country. So I wanted it. I'm going to talk fast because I don't know whether to go away again. I wanted it to be a kind of an inside-out adventure story.
Right.
When I was little, I used to read all kinds of adventure tales set in Africa, like, I don't know, King Solomon's Mines, all these great adventure stories that are all 19th century, like white men in pith helmets. And I wanted to try to play with having a Black heroine who goes into the heart of a country that is supposedly, linked to her, but it really isn't. So she's the adventurer in this.
Right.
And I wanted to play with that idea. So I feel like she starts to explore and to learn throughout the book.
I agree. Okay. So what I was saying when you were off camera is that it starts out and we're very Shay oriented. And then towards the middle of the book, Shay really becomes the narrator or the sort of omniscient. She becomes the storyteller for all of these other things that are going on in Literati. And we, at that point, know her a little bit and we willingly go with her. And so the stories that you tell are just so fascinating. But then at the end of the novel, we come back to a very personal experience of Shay because her marriage is falling apart. And it really is, I think, the sort of the most personal, like the way you describe what's happening between her and Senna is so raw and so well done. And I just want to, that really is where the book sort of comes together. And also the death of Bertine. Oops, we lost her again. But the death of Bertine Legrand, who is such a main character at the beginning, that is really, really powerful. So anyway, for those of you who haven't read Red Island House, I haven't really ruined anything. It is such a rich, deep exploration of a place that I've never been, and a lot of us haven't been. And it's almost like a fever dream of a book, because when I was here in Nantucket in February and I would pick it up in the morning or at night, I was like, I'm going back to Madagascar. That is truly how it feels. Okay, she's back.
Well, I'm about so
Woo!
ask me some more questions quickly before you leave again.
I know. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and like what you studied? And this is your first novel, unless I'm mistaken, and how it came to be published?
No, it's not my first novel. No, I have written a number of, yeah, it's not my first novel. No, I've written a lot of novels over the years. Not a lot of novels. I've actually written and two collections of short stories. So, no, I grew up outside of Philadelphia in a particular middle-class Black suburb that I'm actually writing a memoir about for Scribner's. It's coming out next year. And it's like the opposite of Madagascar. It's like the most familiar American thing possible. So I grew up there. Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, it's really fun. I've been wanting to write this for a long time. And so anyway, I grew up there. I went to school in Boston. I went to Harvard. My first book was about Russia because I'm for some reason always traveling. So my first book, Russian Journal, was inspired by the fact that I went to Russia as a student with my first husband. That was a long time ago, right at the end of the Soviet Union. And if you can imagine, so and so, and then husbands and came back and since then we've raised a family and here in Torino and
oops, we lost her again. You guys, this is proving to be challenging, and I appreciate all of you who are hanging in there. So that's so interesting. I'm sorry. I thought it was Andrea's first novel, and absolutely it's not. So let's go look and see what else. So she said Russian Journal, and then Sarah Phillips, a novel, Interesting Women's Stories, and Lost Hearts in Italy, a novel. They all sound absolutely amazing. Andrea said she's writing a new book set in a suburb of Philadelphia. I also grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia. So she's back.
Oh, where did you grow up in the suburb of Philadelphia?
I grew up in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, which is near Valley Forge.
Oh, yeah, I to Baldwin, and so I know very well that whole area of that's incredible. Well, hello, Philadelphia, suburban Philadelphian, shall we say?
I know. So, I am so
anyway,
yeah.
This is so exciting, but you know what? I am jealous that you're in Nantucket, which is very exotic for most Italians. I happen to have been there many a time, but I love the fact that that you've created this world on on this island, and right. I'm so attracted to islands.
Yes, I was going to say in that respect, I did feel. A lot of my readers will be like, oh, this book was so, exotic or set further afield, Red Island House. But really, in a way, I so appreciated it because I do live on an island. I've lived here 30 years. And I recognized like the basic, especially since this book is not actually set in Madagascar proper, but rather on an island off the coast of Madagascar. It resonated with me that this island life and how everybody knows each other and everybody knows each other's backstory. And maybe the backstory is distorted a little bit. Maybe it's not quite true. Maybe some of it is rumor, but I definitely felt like the nature of island gossip is very prevalent in this book. I really love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think every island is like a little universe. I mean, it's the world in itself, and so, and you a real motivating force. I mean, it's in the.
Oops, we lost her again. You guys are so patient. I really appreciate you. So anyway, and this book is so richly written, and I'm so excited to read Andrea's next novel, which I guess is set outside Philadelphia. I'm super excited for that. So I wish that we had Andrea here so I could ask her some more questions. What I want to ask her when she comes back is what kind of things she reads. And of course, my favorite question of all, which is what are you streaming? Because in this day and age, what we're watching and what we're reading are so, I think, informative as to that's how we share ideas, etc. But I guess we will wait. Hopefully Andrea will be back in a second. Red Island House, you guys. I'm super duper excited. I was also, oh, here she is. Hi, you're back.
Again.
We
don't have much time, but
one of the things I wanted to ask you, Andrea, is what you like to read.
What I like to read. I like to read everything. I'm really omnivorous. I like to read everything from children's books, which I read over and over again. You know, I'm a Tolkien addict. I also read, lots of literature, lots of, sort of heavy duty modern literature. I'm reading right now Karl Ove Knausgaard, which is my struggle, which is oh my God. Yeah, I know. I thought it would be like, I just thought I would start to read it. I was so curious about it. And it's actually hilariously funny and a really good read. It's like 6 volumes long. This gloomy Scandinavian guy who's a house husband, is a great writer. And somehow he makes it funny, tragic, touching. You have no idea. So anyway, I'm reading that.
That is impressive. That is.
Yeah, I know. No, but I'm going, I go back to all kinds of my very favorites. But I like detective stories too. I'm addicted to Sherlock Holmes. So, so I just constantly read everything.
Wonderful. And then what is your writing process like? So you're working on a novel set outside Philadelphia right now. So how often, and are you a professor as well?
No, I was teaching. I was the visiting writer at Swarthmore last year. So so I was there, and I was known as Professor Lee, which I was very, very pleased and flattered to be called. But actually, I generally just write at home. I have a studio here in Torino. We live in a lot of time. Trying to do whatever I have to do then. It's better to write in the morning. So it's all very boring.
Oops, we lost her again. Okay, so she says she tries to write in the morning. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this, but my best time for writing is in the late afternoon. And I feel like it's very strange, but it could be because I used to have to pick my kids up from school at 2:30. And I don't know what I was doing in the mornings, but I get up very, very early and I do some work early, but then the middle of my day is just I can't really get going until the late afternoon. So that's when I have my most productive time. But Andrea is saying she gets up and writes in the morning. I know a lot of you are super curious about things like that. So we will just wait until here she comes. She's back. Hello. So Andrea, okay. So you said you like to write. You like to write in the mornings.
I do. I love writing, but I think that has to do with children too. Because I raised a whole family. Now they're big, but now they're big. But I had the mother schedule, so I would get them picked up on the school bus, and then I would write until they showed up again in front of the gate at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon. And I still have that. That strange feeling that nothing serious happens in my writing after 4 in the afternoon.
Oh, that's so funny.
Which is funny. So
I know.
It's just automatic. Kids are big now.
I'm almost exactly the opposite. And I also raised 3 kids and they were always so busy, but my best time for writing, which is so unusual, I've learned, is between like 3 and 6. Like those are, for whatever reason, those are my hours. And I can even sit down to write at 11 and I won't really feel myself pick up until the late afternoon, which is very strange. So I want to ask, okay, so we talked about your reading. We talked about your process. How often do you get back to the United States?
Pretty often. I come back at least pandemic excluding.
Right.
I usually go several times a year, 2 or 3 times, even more, 2 or 3 times a year. And for a while I had a vacation house in the States, in Rhode Island, but that was really difficult. Yeah, in Newport. That was hard because I constantly, Newport, it's great. It was a beautiful old house, and I just drove me crazy because you're away and you own an old house in some place of the sea. You're always
Right.
getting calls in the middle of the night saying the roof blew off or the furnace just gave up. So I finally, thankfully, sold it, even though I loved it. So
Oh my goodness.
it's just too far away. So
my youngest child
yeah.
is
I spend a lot of
my
time.
youngest, yeah, my youngest child is at St. George's School, so she's right there.
Oh, great. It's a great school. Yeah, a great school. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just ventured into sort of the world of Newport, and you're right. A lot of those houses in Newport proper are very, very old, and that's one of the reasons. So one of the things we were talking about earlier is that I write about the Caribbean. I have a trilogy set in St. John, and I too, Andrea, felt like, do I have any right to be writing about a place where I don't own property and I'm not from there. I'm happy to say that like that trilogy was very well received. Have you had any comments from people from the Malagasy people about this book? Like, do you feel like they're reading it? Has anybody responded to you?
Well, actually not, because it's not very much, because because it's a country in which French is the European language that people speak. They speak Malagasy or French. It hasn't been translated into French yet. So not really, but I have to say, to make it so that when they do read it, they will not feel that I was too intrusive or presumptuous. I did a lot of research. I tried to get everything right, because I still felt like, and also I thought, well, I can write about the foreigners and their interactions with, if I were to try to pick a person who was born there, that would be wrong, because I wouldn't get it. But to write about foreigners like me and their missteps and their is fine, I think. So it's what to do with that book. So.
Right. It was absolutely perfect.
How did you tell me about, go on.
I was going to say, in St. John, I've been very, very lucky because my timing was good, because basically the hurricanes hit in 2017, decimated St. John. And then in 2018, this book came out and it really brought tourism back. And everyone was so grateful that the book came out, and it was sort of highlighting St. John, and it sort of started back up businesses and the economy. And so I can't buy a drink in that town. Everywhere I go, business owners they're so happy about it. They're so excited that somebody wrote about the Virgin Islands. And I too, I interviewed locals, and I go for 8 weeks every year, and really tried to make sure, as you did in this novel, which is so carefully and beautifully depicted, but you want to make sure that every detail is correct so that you don't come across as, a charlatan or whatever, writing about a place that you really have no business writing about. So I definitely feel that struggle. Okay, I'm going to end on one question. I hope you can hear me. I always like to know, and you're in Italy, so it may be completely different. What are you watching? What are you streaming?
Everybody else's. Let's see, what else am I watching? What am I watching? I literally just.
Okay, we lost her. Okay, so since we don't have Andrea, I will tell you what I'm streaming. So I just finished Industry on HBO, which I absolutely loved, and I have started watching a show called Blackbird on Apple TV, which is about it's written by Dennis Lehane, who is like a big popular crime writer from outside of Massachusetts. So anyway, you guys, I really appreciate. Oh, here she comes. Okay, Andrea, we have 1 minute left.
Quick. House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon. Okay, so you're really a fantasy.
I'm really into I'm streaming House of the Dragon, and let's see what else. A really good series. It's really fun, called Partner Track. That's on Netflix. It's
my daughter is watching
rom-com. Yeah, it's really fun. It's fun. It's fun, and it's actually, it's really fun, pretty to look at, well done. So yeah, So that's
wonderful.
it's great fun. Yeah, it's so different. Life in Italy now. We can watch everything you watch in the States now. So it's
I
great.
know. That is so exciting. All right. So we have 20 seconds left. Andrea, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. First of all, thank all my readers for hanging in there despite some technical difficulties. And please, if you haven't, read Andrea's novel, Red Island House. It's absolutely magnificent. And Andrea, please have your publisher send me your new book.
I will. Thank you so much. And I'm a great fan. Again, I can hardly